Okay, nah, dude. Nah. No. We're not gonna entertain this idea any further beyond this one video. It always happens. I always get questions, replies, DMs, YouTube comments, always asking, hey, Lego, should the Canucks go after this guy? This player's available on the market. Vancouver should get him. And like, of course, that's gonna happen, right? Whenever players are openly available on the market or they're placed in unfavorable positions on their teams and there's speculation that they could enter the trade market soon, as a YouTuber with a fan base that consists of many fans of one team, it's very easy for those fans to get caught up in the hype and saying, hey, should my team go after this guy? It happens all the time. But because there have been a few articles written about this particular idea, I wanted to go out there and shut it down immediately as to why I don't think it's a profitable one. So, we're heading over to the Philadelphia Flyers and talking once again about Morgan Frost. The last time we had talked about this guy, it was in the video with the 2012 disaster thumbnail. Yeah, I did that very particularly because it was funny. But essentially, Morgan Frost is a young center on the Flyers, 24 years old. He was a very good center last year with 46 points in 81 games played. And this is a guy that has been scratched by John Tortorella in the most blunt way possible. And the most unforgiving, unapologetic way possible, too. He was a very good player last year, but he hasn't found his groove this season just yet. And after getting scratched for a bit with the Philadelphia Flyers, Tortorella expressed no remorse whatsoever in the decision, and Frost ended up getting more conversation surrounding him regarding the idea of him maybe requesting a trade and whether or not it was inevitable and all that stuff. I will say though, Frost as of late has been playing and he has been producing. Yesterday he scored 2 goals against the LA Kings, and the day before that he had an assist against the Ducks. So there he goes with 3 points in his last 2 games and his first 3 points of the season. So maybe there, right away, is another idea that adds on to this conversation not really being worth it. But because Morgan Frost, for a brief period of time, was indeed in this discussion of potentially wanting out, we did have a few articles that talked about the idea of Frost specifically coming over to the Vancouver Canucks. In particular, there's a piece made on the Canuck Way, which is the Canucks version of Fansided, Should the Canucks Trade for the Flyers' Morgan Frost, published by Jonathan Bailey 1 week ago. I'll leave a link in the description to this article if you want to read it, because Bailey does some pretty good work consistently, and I'm a fan of his content. But the article pretty much goes over the idea of Frost being in a tough spot with the Flyers, him being scratched 6 straight games, and how that kind of a narrative definitely doesn't paint a good picture. There was the contract holdout earlier this summer, and now there's the idea that Frost isn't going to work out in Philadelphia. Again, this article was written before the guy got 2 goals last night against the Kings, so what do we know? But the article does propose the idea of Vancouver being an option here. Low risk, high reward player on a cheap contract. Other than this piece on the Canuck Way, there also was a piece made on NHLTradeRumors.me from yesterday, wherein it actually says that Frank Saravalli listed Vancouver as one of the potential options, which I was not able to find a source on that, but the article says it, so it has to be 100% true, right? I'm joking about that, by the way. Don't take everything you read online seriously, kids. But regardless, there still is this idea that I wanted to address regarding Frost and whether or not he'd be a good pickup for Vancouver. My answer simply is no. Not because Frost is not a good player. If you've seen the videos we've made about him and his contract extension process, we had talked about the unfortunate proceedings in the summer where he did not sign right away. We also talked about the disaster situation of him getting scratched for a bunch of games straight. If you have seen those videos, you know my opinion about Morgan Frost is very positive. He's a small-ish forward with a really great playmaking touch, one of the best offensive players in the Flyers last year. And based off of his short stint in 23-24, he definitely still has the talent. It's just, it took a while to get there, and a lot of scratchings in between that too. 2 goals and 1 assist in his last 3 games is definitely great, but of course this type of production isn't really sustainable, and the fact that he was pointless beforehand doesn't make things great for him either, but there still is a lot of talent in what Frost could be. a potential top 6 middle-of-the-line playmaker who, if you play him with some very talented goal scorers like Cutter Gauthier, Tyson Forster, Matvei Michkov, if you play him with these guys on his wings, you could end up getting a really solid, let's say 60 to 70 point center in his prime. I mean, the guy had 40 points last year, 46 points at only 23 years old, so there definitely is a higher ceiling here when it comes to the long-term future. It's just right now for Morgan Frost, the coaching in Philadelphia has been rough to the point that he was scratched, and that it took him a long time to get into the lineup. I don't want to make it seem like because he got those 3 points in his last 2 games, that type of production is 100% sustainable for the rest of the year. He's probably going to go through some more ups and downs, and the coaching from Tortorella in Philly is not going to do him much favors. So, when it comes to what Frost could be in a trade-like scenario, what you're getting is a low-risk, very high ceiling type of a playmaker, but this is not guaranteed. He's not a guy that's going to come out here and take over a top 6 spot from JT Miller or Elias Pettersson. And when it comes to those bottom 2 center positions, currently held by Pia Sutar, and then you could say Dakota Joshua, you could say Teddy Bluger's coming back, so let's say Bluger and Sutar, Frost may have a higher offensive output than Suter or Bluger, but he's not really the guy that I would rely upon in a defensive penalty kill situation or as a forechecking hard-nosed center who plays on a line with wingers like Lafferty and other guys that are just there to keep the puck in the offensive zone, give the opponents a difficult time in breaking back out, not really scoring too many points in the process, but just playing really hard and defensively responsible. That's not to doubt Morgan Frost in his game. It's not like he's a terrible defensive player, but he's not really the kind of guy who, if he pans out to his best of potentials, fits that kind of role. Like, Pia Sutar is a guy I feel a lot more comfortable placing there because he feels like a guy who belongs there. Pia Sutar can produce points while also providing a very solid face-off winning ability, defensive responsibility, and a penalty-killing edge. Same thing could be said exactly in the same way for Teddy Bluger. This is a guy who was pegged to being that third-line center. He didn't come over to Vancouver because he wanted to take over a top spot from Petey or Miller. For Morgan Frost, I feel like if you set him up to be the third-line, fourth-line guy in Vancouver, you're kind of doing him a disservice. Like, if you traded Frost instead to some of the other teams that we had talked about that were interested in him, let's say Montreal or Ottawa, then there's an opportunity for him to actually break out in a pretty good way. Not to say that he's guaranteed to taking over top center duty over Tim Stützle or Nick Suzuki, but there is more of a contest to be had. There are more spots to be had in the middle to top 6s of these Canadian teams compared to trying to beat out JT freaking Miller for that role in Vancouver. You kind of get what I'm saying here? This trade may not be the one that I feel would be most serviceable to the Canucks, because if you tried to put Frost in a third to fourth line center position, I'd much rather have a Suter or a Bluger in that spot. I feel more confident with them being tasked with those type of roles rather than Frost. And you're setting Frost up for a more undesirable situation too, because he'd be kind of playing lower than his potential would indicate. I don't really feel like this is the trade that makes the most sense for either party involved. And that's coming from somebody who has been a fan of Frost. As I said, we've been making videos about this guy since 2018, when he was drafted, asking if he was a potential steal. That was before he made the NHL and everything. He was an OHL player back then. I've always been a fan of Morgan Frost, but if I had to be honest, talking about where everything is right now, I do not think the Vancouver Canucks are an appropriate trade destination for him and his services. So if you're a Philadelphia Flyers fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How is my analysis here on Frosty? Do you think this is the right way to go about it? Do you think I have a point when I say the Canucks would not be a suitor for him? And if you're a Canucks fan, what are your opinions on the idea of Vancouver getting a small-ish, offensively minded center playmaker to replace a guy like Sutar or Bluger and play behind Miller and Petey? Do you think this is the appropriate move? Do you want to have more offense from the third line of this team? Do you think there's more improvements to be made in that respect and that Frost would be an acceptable upgrade? Do you think instead that this wouldn't work out? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. The links to the articles will be in the description if you want to go ahead and read those. But for now, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Morgan Frost and the Vancouver Canucks. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.